A grand narration describes the Zeppelin Academy as a sprawling island where students learn not just swordsmanship and magic, but also etiquette, culture, commerce, management, and even hunting and farming. The students work tirelessly to stand out in their chosen fields, and depending on their efforts, they can amass great wealth while enrolled, or prove their skills in bloody battles against monsters. It is described as the ultimate symbol of humanity transcending nature, a learning paradise for all students. The scene shifts to the steps of the massive academy building, where Wolfram von Lohengrin sits alone, a dark shadow cast over his face. A voice from inside the bank clerk's window cuts through the air, shattering his thoughts. 0 Ren. Wolfram's eyes widen in utter shock as he exclaims, "What?" The clerk, a cheerful-looking woman with a bun, holds up a 0 with her fingers, sparkling effects around her. A second clerk, looking somber, confirms the devastating news. "Your account is completely empty." Wolfram sits on the stone steps outside the bank, clutching an empty pouch, his face a mask of despair. He sighs deeply and curses himself, thinking, "Wolfram, you thoughtless idiot, what the hell did you blow all that money on?" A glimpse of his transaction history reveals a series of massive expenditures, clothes, shady magical tools, and getting cleaned out at the casino. He had never seen a bastard blow cash so recklessly. With a bitter realization, he thinks, "And now I'm that bastard." Suddenly, a spark of hope flashes in his eyes. "Wait, right, there's got to be something valuable left in my dorm." He rushes to the Zeppelin first dormitory, Gladstein, but upon his arrival, an attendant informs him, "Wolfram von Lohengrin, your move-out procedures are complete." Wolfram is stunned, screaming, "What?" In a flash of light, all of his belongings, trunks, suitcases, and a long sword, are unceremoniously dumped onto the pavement in front of him. The attendant politely bows, says, "Here is your luggage, sir. Thank you for staying with us," and shuts the heavy doors in his face. Wolfram stands in stunned silence. He sits on the ground, desperately rummaging through his scattered belongings. He lays out his old items, a sword, a blue uniform, a book, a necklace, and a staff. Just as he is about to lose all hope, a young student with orange hair approaches, his eyes wide with awe. The boy gasps, looking at the items, and asks, "Wow, is that an antique? How much is this?" Wolfram's face suddenly darkens, a heavy, ominous shadow falling over him. He glares at the kid with an intense, chilling look. The student recoils in absolute terror, screaming, "Eek! President? I'm so sorry." He throws his hands up in frantic apology before turning and fleeing for his life, leaving Wolfram alone with his scattered past and his new, uncertain future. Wolfram sits alone on the grass next to his scattered luggage, reflecting on the situation. He thinks to himself that the original Wolfram was the absolute worst student council president, and while he still can't get used to the terrified reactions he receives, he's found some pretty valuable-looking items in the luggage. He puts his hand to his chin, scheming, "Now how do I sell these for what they're actually worth?" He heads to the on-campus dwarf guild, Maestro, a rustic wooden building. Wolfram proudly holds up a long, ornate sword and asks, "How about it?"
"It's a definite masterpiece, right?" The dwarf pawnbroker, a burly man with a red bandana and braided beard, glares at him and shuts it down. "Even if that was the divine sword of wind, Rapidigena, we aren't buying it." Wolfram is shocked, screaming, "Huh? Why?" He thinks to himself that dwarves normally go crazy for masterpieces, so why turn this down? The dwarf simply orders him to get out. Undeterred, Wolfram next visits the on-campus elf guild, Yggdrasil, a tall white tower. He reasons that if dwarves won't take it, elves will. He presents a blue robe, thinking, no way they refuse these top-grade magic robes. But the elf, with long white hair and pointed ears, immediately responds, "We decline." Wolfram protests, Do you even know what this is?" "Robes woven from the highest grade El Condor silk." "Exactly, it's a total masterpiece, so why won't you?" The elf calmly repeats, "We just don't want it." Wolfram walks away, dragging his luggage with a heavy sigh. He thinks about his usual strategy in games. Whenever he started a game, the very first thing he always did was grind faction affinity. It always paid off later, unlocking perks like buying rare items from them. But this is a first. He realizes his affinity is at rock bottom right from the start. He watches the dwarf and the elf standing together with their arms crossed, glaring in his direction. A moment of suspicion crosses his mind as he wonders why. He stops and looks back, noticing the dwarf subtly sneaking glances at him before turning away defensively. Wolfram approaches the dwarf, and the stout man starts coughing awkwardly into his fist. Ahem, ahem. Ahem, Wolfram gives a confident smile, thinking he's just a typical dwarf, and asks, "Hey, this is obviously a masterpiece. Why exactly won't you buy it?" The dwarf scoffs, "Tch, shameless. Do you truly not know? Because you're the one selling it, Wolfram von Lohengrin. There's a limit to being awful." Wolfram is completely caught off guard, sweat dropping as he thinks, "What?" The dwarf explains, "Word already spread all over the place early this morning, now that Wolfram is no longer student council president. Maestro, Yggdrasil, Diabolus, and the five-color magic tower are not to treat him as student council president." Wolfram, sweating profusely, holds the sword up defensively and pleads, "Even if you don't treat me as student council president, you can still buy the sword, can't you? Is it because it's too expensive?" The dwarf yells back, "Bah! That sword is worth about 50 million rin, and those robes you tried to pawn off on the elves are 30 million. That's mere pocket change to us." He then leans in dangerously, his voice dropping to a serious tone. "You only know half of it. Did you forget? Here in Zeppelin, only the student council president stands above us." A shadow falls over Wolfram as the dwarf delivers the final blow. The current student council president has it out for you.
Wolfram stands before the dwarf pawnbroker with an unsettlingly calm smile, completely unfazed by the revelation that the new student council president has blacklisted him. He simply says, "I see. So that's how it is. Thanks for the info." He then casually turns to leave, adding, "I'll be going," leaving the dwarf staring at his back with a stunned expression. As Wolfram walks away, dragging his luggage, the dwarf mutters to himself, "He seems strangely different." Later, Wolfram collapses onto a wooden bench, sighing heavily. He thinks to himself, "This is harder than I thought. Without an academy affiliation, I lose all student privileges. Sadly, I'm currently stuck somewhere in limbo between expulsion and admission. I need to find some academy-affiliated organization to join, and fast." His stomach growls loudly. He whines, "I'm starving, exhausted, and sleepy." As night falls and he lies curled up on the bench, a shadow looms over him. A voice softly calls out, "Slide." "Hey!" Wolfram jolts awake, screaming in fright. "Who's there?" The man standing before him, a tall figure with a scarred face, laughs and says, "Whoa, didn't mean to scare you. Just thought you could use something to eat." He holds out a basket filled with fresh bread rolls. Wolfram stares in shock, then immediately starts wolfing down the bread, gobbling it up hungrily. The man smiles and remarks, "You look like a mess, Mr. President." Wolfram, still chewing, says, "Don't worry, I just haven't found a place to stay yet. Anyway, thanks for the food." Suddenly, his eyes widen with a flash of recognition. He drops his bread, exclaiming, "Wait a sec! Is your name by any chance—" The man looks confused, pointing to himself. "Huh? Me? My name is—" The scene cuts to a flashback from the game. Young-jin, the convenience store part-timer, is seen on the floor of his store, holding his phone with a game screen displayed. On that screen, the game character, Phil of the General, is depicted crying profusely with two options visible, no and yes. The game text reads, "I want to hand over this damn grocery store. Interested?" The game character Phil continues to cry and beg, "Do you want to buy it?" Young-jin's voice echoes in his mind. "Are you crazy? Buying that would obviously ruin me. Why would I do that?" Back in the present, Wolfram's eyes are gleaming with desperate hope. He grabs the man's hand tightly, shouting internally, "My ticket to survival!" The man, Phil of the General, laughs awkwardly and says, "Just call me Phil. Phil from the grocery store. Well, I'm quitting this money pit of a grocery store anyway, but—" Wolfram grips his hand with intense determination, his face shadowed with a manic smile. He declares, "Listen, Phil, that debt-ridden garbage grocery store of yours, sell it to me." In front of Phil's general store, Phil smiles warmly as he shakes Wolfram's hand, saying, "Thank you so much." A message box appears, announcing, "Thanks to you, I can finally return to my hometown with a clear mind." As Phil departs, another message pops up. "You have acquired Phil's grocery store." Wolfram stands in front of the store, throwing his hands up in a triumphant pose. However, once he steps inside, a message box bleakly reads, "Nothing happened." He walks over to the counter, his expression darkening as another message appears. As expected, nothing happened. A final, devastating pop-up reveals the truth. All the groceries have rotted. The scene zooms in on a massive pile of moldy, decaying bread and vegetables. A notification flashes on the screen. "You have gone bankrupt." Wolfram collapses onto the floor in a dramatic dead faint, a spotlight illuminating his crumpled form. He suddenly jolts awake, screaming "Eek!" in terror, his face contorted in a comical mask of fear. He gasps for air as he realizes he's still in the store, and the piles of rotting food are still very much real. He slumps over the counter, sweating profusely, before whispering to himself, "It was a dream." Suddenly, the front door bangs open, and he flinches in surprise. Phil walks in, greeting him cheerfully with a wave. Yotilda. "Sleep well, Mr. former Student Council President?" He tosses a thick stack of bills onto the counter and adds, "Here, 5 million rin." Wolfram stares at the money in disbelief, asking, "What is this?" Phil crosses his arms with a grin. "Wouldn't you need funds to order the next stock if you're running a store?" Wolfram contemplates the situation. He traded his sword and formal attire to acquire the grocery store. Selling them off would have been child's play if the seller wasn't Wolfram. Since they were valued at 80 million rin combined, the actual acquisition cost was 75 million rin. He scoffs. "Well, I suppose I should say thanks. A reasonably fair price, I suppose." Phil then pauses, a thoughtful look on his face. "Oh, when I mentioned this contract, the landlord said they wanted to meet the new owner." Wolfram feels a cold sweat run down his neck. He asks, "The landlord?" A sudden realization hits him as he thinks, they wanted to meet Wolfram von Lohengrin. A faint echoing voice drifts through the air. "Sorry, I'm a bit late." Phil steps aside, saying, "Ah, you're just in time. Well, I'll be taking my leave then." The sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps echoes in the room. Wolfram's eyes widen as he watches long legs stride past him. A narrative box describes the scene. A dry, yet undeniably beautiful voice. The camera pans up to reveal a woman with long black hair cascading down to her waist. There's no mistake. This woman is Ayah Tristar. She stands before him, stunningly beautiful, but with a cold, stoic expression. The narration continues to explain her identity. The runner-up of the third-year magic department and the mid-boss of D.Z Saga Act 3. Wolfram looks at her with wide, panicked eyes, a heavy sweat drop on his face. The final text delivers the crushing blow. And Wolfram's my fiancé. Wolfram von Lohengrin stands nervously behind his new counter as Ayah Tristar walks into his grocery store, her piercing gaze fixed on him. She breaks the tense silence, her voice cold and demanding. "Say something, Wolfram von Lohengrin."
"Why did you come looking for me?" Wolfram stares back, a single drop of sweat rolling down his temple, completely at a loss for words. Ayah scoffs, crossing her arms with an air of absolute disdain. "Buying this grocery store was clearly a message to me. Are you asking me to save you, or is it an order?" Wolfram remains silent, his eyes wide with panic as he tries to process her words. Ayah steps closer, her voice dripping with contempt as she delivers a brutal verbal strike. "A man whose only redeeming quality was his ambition. After losing your position to your younger sister, are you now leaning on your fiancé? There is no room for you here. Please leave." Wolfram slumps his shoulders, his face completely shadowed, and thinks in despair, "What do I do?" But then a spark of determination flashes in his eyes as he begins to analyze her. Ayah Tristar, eldest daughter of the Tristar Count family, who controls 20% of the Lohengrin Empire's commercial sphere. Born with 19 mana, a genius who has already reached Tier 3 magic. He shudders internally, thinking of his own weak body, and realizes, with this weak body of Wolfram's, the moment Ayah gets serious, I'm finished. He forces himself to stay calm and thinks, "Don't stop thinking. I have to use every piece of information I have on Ayah to find a way to survive. The right answer for this moment is..." He looks up and declares, "Ayah Tristar." Ayah turns back to face him. Wolfram scoffs, putting on a mask of arrogant confidence. "Ridiculous! Was this building yours? To invest in a mere building like this, what shabby eyes you have!" Ayla's face twitches with a vein of anger, and she whispers dangerously, "What did you say?" Wolfram waves a dismissive hand, continuing his facade. "A man like Wolfram von Lohengrin doesn't bother remembering such trivial buildings." Ayah glares at him, and the narration reminds him that she is nicknamed the Witch of Rebellion and the Lady of Ambition. She calls out his bluff. "Liar! Then why did you try to acquire this grocery store?" In that moment, Wolfram realizes his key. Her favorite word is ambition. A dark, confident smirk spreads across his face as he answers, "For the sake of my ambition." Ayah stares at him in stunned silence before erupting in mocking laughter. "Ha! You're the ridiculous one. You dare talk about ambition when you're backed into a corner?" Wolfram meets her gaze directly, his eyes sharp and unwavering. "A corner? Not at all. I haven't let go of anything." He spreads his arms wide, gesturing to the dingy shelves around them, and declares with absolute conviction, "This grocery store will be the starting point of my ambition." Ayah steps back, looking around in confusion, then demands, Just what is this grocery store supposed to be?"
Wolfram looks at Ayah with a confident, calculating smile. He tells her, "Shadows must conceal themselves in the most secretive of places." Internally, he rationalizes that what Ayah expects from him is the Wolfram who hasn't lost his ambition. In that case, the version of himself he needs to show her is one who uses this grocery store as a stepping stone to claim talented individuals for his own. Ayah scoffs at his boast, sneering. "Claiming talented individuals? Do you even have the discernment to recognize talent? That druid girl you cherish so much." As she speaks, her hand reaches out and grabs a large golden brown bread loaf. Wolfram's eyes widen. He then confidently states, "The magic department freshman, specializing in fire magic. And the one in the night department, showing the potential of a sword saint." Ayla's eyes go wide with shock, and she exclaims, "How do you know that?" Wolfram smirks, leaning back with the bread held near his face, and replies, "Do you still doubt my discernment?" He then reveals his grand plan, declaring, "Ayah Tristar, the reason I stepped down quietly was to gain the opportunity to rule the academy from the shadows." Ayah is stunned, murmuring, "That means..." As she speaks, the image of Wolfram overlays with a vision of him sitting casually in an ornate throne, smiling with absolute dominance. He looks down and delivers a powerful monologue. "Rebellion is greatest when it starts in the most secret of places. Rebellion." Ayah stands frozen, a blush of confusion and surprise on her face. Wolfram thinks to himself that this line, "Shadows must conceal themselves in the most secretive of places," is precisely Ayah's identity. It was originally her signature line, but he used it first. Sweating profusely, he internally apologizes. "Sorry, I have to survive too." Ayah finally whispers, I can't believe it." Wolfram continues, his expression turning cold and serious. He steps toward her, his voice dropping low. "I never told you to believe me. Belief is a hollow word. It's a trivial word that follows only after results are shown. I won't ask for your help, however." He looks her directly in the eye, delivering a chilling threat. "Do not get in my way, because if you do, I will remove you." Internally, he congratulates himself, thinking, "Insane. Perfect method acting. How's that? This is the embodiment of the ambition-driven Wolfram you wish to see." Ayah looks at him with a stunned expression before slowly forming a wide, malicious grin. She steps forward, her voice laced with challenge. "Then go ahead and try removing me." Her eyes gleam dangerously. Wolfram's face instantly contorts into a shocked, comical expression of terror, his eyes swirling and mouth open in a distorted grimace.